Welcome to Little English Studio, the channel where history, culture, and the wonders of our world come to life in clear and simple English. Today, we take you to a chain of islands scattered like pearls across the vast blue expanse of the Pacific Ocean, a place where ancient voyagers once followed the stars, where the sea sings the stories of survival and spirit, and where the land itself seems to float between memory and the future. This is the Marshall Islands, one of the world's most remote nations, beautiful, fragile, and profoundly human. Let's set sail into its story. Far out in the central Pacific, between Hawaii and Australia, lies a nation that is mostly water and only a whisper of land, the Marshall Islands. It consists of 29 coral atolls and 5 solitary islands, stretched across nearly 2 million square kilometers of ocean. Yet together their total land area is barely 180 square kilometers. The islands are low, narrow, and delicate, formed by coral reefs that grew atop ancient underwater volcanoes. From above, they look like jeweled rings of green and gold floating in endless blue. The people who first came here were ocean navigators, masters of the waves long before maps or compasses existed. Around 2,000 years ago, Austronesian voyagers arrived in canoes guided only by the stars, the feel of the swells, and the patterns of birds in flight. They built lives upon these small strips of sand and coral, planting breadfruit, taro, and pandanus, and fishing the lagoon waters with skillful hands. To the Marshallese, the sea was not a barrier. It was their road, their provider, their teacher. They invented stick charts, intricate wooden maps made of curved sticks and shells that represented wave patterns and island locations, a technology so advanced that even European explorers were astonished by their accuracy. Every wave, every gust of wind, every bird's call was part of their navigation system. Life here was rhythm, sunrise fishing, afternoon gathering, evening storytelling. The islands were small, but their hearts were vast. The first Europeans to record their arrival in the region were the Spanish in the 16th century, but it wasn't until the 18th century that the islands were charted in detail. They were named after the British explorer John Marshall, who sailed through them in 1788. For centuries, the outside world looked upon these islands with curiosity, sometimes greed, often misunderstanding. Missionaries, traders, and whalers came, bringing new goods and new diseases. In the late 19th century, Germany claimed the islands, building trading posts for copra, dried coconut meat used for oil. When World War I began, Japan took control, developing airfields and fortifications. During this period, island life changed dramatically. Traditional structures gave way to colonial systems, and foreign powers used the islands for their strategic value, not for their people. Yet the Marshallese maintained their songs, dances, and kinship systems, the Biwij and Jawi, the matrilineal clans that bound families together. In their chants and proverbs, they preserved identity even under changing flags. When the Second World War reached the Pacific, the Marshall Islands became a stage for one of the fiercest military campaigns. Japanese forces fortified atolls like Kwajalein and Jaluit, turning the lagoons into military harbors. In 1944, American forces attacked in what became the Battle of Kwajalein, one of the bloodiest and most decisive moments of the Pacific War. After Japan's defeat, the islands came under U.S. administration as part of the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. But peace did not bring safety. In the late 1940s, a new kind of war arrived, the nuclear age. Between 1946 and 1958, the United States conducted 67 nuclear tests in the Marshall Islands, primarily on Bikini and Enewetak atolls. The people of Bikini were told to evacuate for the good of mankind. They left their home, believing they would return soon. They never did. What followed was devastation. The tests vaporized islands, poisoned lagoons, and displaced entire communities. 1954, Castle Bravo explosion. A hydrogen bomb more than 1,000 times stronger than Hiroshima spread radioactive fallout across vast distances. Islanders suffered burns, sickness, and generations of health problems. Cows died, fish disappeared, and the once clear lagoons became deadly. The islands were used as laboratories for destruction, but their people became voices of resilience. They sang songs of loss, but also of strength, songs that told the world, "We are still here." In the 1960s and 70s, the Marshallese began to organize politically. They demanded recognition, responsibility, and rights. Leaders like Amata Kabua guided the nation toward self-government, negotiating with the United States for compensation and sovereignty. In 1979, the Republic of the Marshall Islands declared independence in free association. With the U.S., this meant they would manage their own government while receiving economic aid and defense support. The road was not easy. The islands faced immense challenges: limited natural resources, dependence on imports, environmental vulnerability, and the long shadow of nuclear contamination. But the Marshallese spirit persisted. Schools were built, the local language was preserved, and Majuro became a small yet vibrant capital. Canoe culture was revived. Young people once again learned to sail by stars. The country joined the United Nations in 1991, stepping into the global stage as one of the smallest but proudest nations on Earth. If the past of the Marshall Islands was shaped by the sea, its future will depend on it. The nation sits at the front lines of climate change. Rising seas threaten to swallow entire atolls. Saltwater intrusion destroys crops, floods homes, and poisons wells. In some villages, people have already begun to relocate, either to higher ground within their atolls or to other countries like the United States. Yet many refuse to leave. They say, "We will not be the first climate refugees. We will be the last ones standing." The Marshallese government has become one of the strongest voices in global climate diplomacy. Their representatives speak passionately at UN conferences, reminding the world that climate change is not just an environmental issue, it is a human story. Every rising wave erases a piece of history. Every lost coconut grove is a memory gone. But amid this threat, innovation blooms. Solar power projects, coral restoration, and sustainable fishing are helping the islands adapt. The youth lead cleanup programs, digital storytelling, and educational exchanges. They use music, art, and poetry to express both grief and hope. To walk through Majuro or Ebai is to see the modern Pacific in motion. Colorful markets filled with woven mats and fresh fish, children running along the sea wall. Elders weaving baskets from pandanus leaves. The air smells of salt and diesel. In the evenings, laughter drifts over the lagoon as families gather for Biwebwanado storytelling. The stories are old, but the themes are timeless: bravery, wisdom, respect for the sea. Traditional canoes glide quietly at dusk, their sails reflecting the sunset. Fishermen mend nets. Women sing lullabies that mention the moon, the ocean, and the ancestors who guide them. Life is simple, but filled with meaning. Churches ring bells every Sunday morning. Radio stations play both local songs and American pop hits. English and Marshallese blend in conversations, a rhythm that mirrors the nation's dual identity. Visitors often say that time feels slower here, not because there is less to do, but because people live in harmony with the natural pace of the world. Every sunrise is a gift. Every wave is a reminder that life is both fragile and eternal. The Marshall Islands teach us something the modern world often forgets: that smallness is not weakness, and isolation can be strength. These islands remind us that identity is not measured by size, but by connection to land, to sea, to memory. They show that humanity's greatest battles are not always fought with weapons, but with willpower, dignity, and song. When the Marshallese speak of their homeland, they use the word biwij, meaning family. To them, the land, the ocean, and the sky are all one family, and that belief might just be what saves them. And that was the story of the Marshall Islands, a story of voyagers and visionaries, of tragedy and triumph, of small islands with a vast heart. From the ancient navigators who read the stars to the modern islanders defending their home from the rising sea, the Marshall Islands stand as a symbol of endurance and grace. Thank you for watching Little English Studio. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories of our world, told in clear, simple, and beautiful English. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep believing in the power of stories.